Well, hello and welcome to Women in Leadership using emotional intelligence for effective communication. I bet you've already figured out that this is going to be a very interesting course. Yep, it is. I'm Renee Dubois, and I will be guiding you through the next several modules on how we as women communicate, why we communicate the way that we do, and what makes us extremely, or shall I say, highly effective leaders as women because of our communications. So let's get started. Number one, women are nurturers, aren't we? We give birth, we give life, we add value once we give life to children. We teach them, we rear them, we guide them, we nurture them. Women, in a sense, are nurturers. Because we give life and birth to children who grow up and become active citizens, working, professional adults, because of that, we are accustomed to communicating and helping children learn the language of that particular country's domain. We are nurturers in that we allow ourselves to be very open, to be very vulnerable. We allow ourselves to be very flexible. And furthermore, we engage ourselves in a way that we want to please, we want to excite, we want to give life, not only through the humanity aspect of it, but give life in the work environment. In everything we do as women, it's all about how we can add more value. The best way that a woman leader can add value is through her communications. Women believe in creating experiences, not just for themselves, but for the people around them. That in and of itself makes us, for the most part, fairly good leaders. But it certainly drives in the point in another course that I have, wherein I talk about the resonant leader versus the dissonant leader. Women automatically by birth become resonant leaders, meaning that we are mindful, that we're loyal, that we're socially engaging. You name all of the elements of being active and participants in a willful way, in a joyful way. Doesn't mean we're in a good mood all the time. We all know that's not true because there are things that go on in our body that prevent us from being joyful all the time, happy all the time. But I'm not talking so much about that. I'm talking about how we use this, the mouth, and the words that come out of it. So I'm going to explain in this module various steps on how we as women engage ourselves through communication to be highly engaging and effective, using emotional intelligence to drive in our point, our message, and shall we say productivity. First thing I'd like to discuss is this. Voila! It's an old raggedy hammer. Hammer. You can see it's been around a while, but honey, let me tell you, this baby can still do the job. Now, what is a hammer used for? Typically speaking, you will find this in construction, isn't it? Even in your own home, when you're adding new panels or doing something and remodeling in your home, you need this little baby to get it done. But what is a hammer's real purpose? How is a hammer actually used for remodeling? Because essentially remodeling is nothing more than rebuilding, isn't it? When you are remodeling, you're taking what was old and making it new again. To do that, you need a hammer. So let's talk about what a hammer does in its most effective realm of helping you to rebuild or remodel. First tip of a hammer: it's got a big heavy head at the end of it, and it's got a split, almost like a long nose on it, and it's got the body, the handle that we use to hold it. The first thing I want to tell you about a hammer and how it's used is a hammer drives. What in the world? Well, picture this, and I'm going to demonstrate it. You take a hammer, you've got huge nails that you need to put inside the wall, inside the wood. So when you take the nail and put it on the point where you'd like the hammer to drive it in, you must use the butt end, the head end of the hammer, because it's flat. And it's going to drive that nail into the wood. It is used to make point of contact and then to hone in or drive in the nail into the wood, so that particular section where you are will maintain, be steady, be solid, and be firm. Voila. But the second thing a hammer does is to draw. Sometimes when you're remodeling, you put a hammer, the head of it, to a nail, and you're driving it, and sometimes you may look off, you're listening to music, you get distracted, and what happens? You ultimately bend the nail, and the nail is bent as it has gone into the wood. The only way to get that nail out is to turn the hammer around, because the split end can go into the nail to drive or to draw it out. We've got the head to drive it in. We've got the split to draw it out. Sometimes we render ineffective when we put the nail in too hard, too strong, or maybe it's not the right size nail to go into that section of the wall. There's different size nails, isn't it? Some are thicker, stronger, and more durable than others. It depends on what you're putting together that will determine the type of nail that you use. So you now know that a hammer drives, it draws, but here's the last thing a hammer does. It straightens out. Once you drive it out, the purpose of that is to get that nail out, which is clearly not effective now, nor is it going to support the area that you're putting it in. So now you've got to get a new nail and begin to draw it in again. If there is a possibility of saving the nail that's in there, you will be able to take the split end of your hammer and straighten it out. Now, when you want to straighten out a nail on rebuilding, you've got to first drive it out. Once you do that, you go back to the head and you tap, 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 or you tap, 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 or you tap, 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 until you've got it straight again. And then you can turn it around, use the butt of it, and draw that nail all the way in until it's tight, firm, and secure. What was the purpose of that demonstration? Well, it's to convey one thing. We as women, when we communicate, we're just like this hammer. We believe and we like, as well as enjoy, drawing, driving, and straightening out. It comes with the territory, because as a woman, when you raise children, sometimes you got to drive in a point, sometimes you got to straighten things out with the hubby, or the significant other. Sometimes you have to straighten things out. And isn't it the same in the workplace. As a leader, we're known for driving the force. We're known for straightening things out because our communication style is just like this hammer. It's heavy, it's firm, and it has a multiplicity of uses. So it is so with women in leadership. There are ways that we as women communicate. So how, in addition to giving you that demonstration, do we communicate? Well, tip number one is this. We have gender patterns, male versus female, isn't it? Okay, let's just keep it there for the moment. With those gender patterns comes nonverbal communication and verbal communication. Let's switch that. Verbal communication and nonverbal communication. Well, we already know that verbal communication, again, is using this. It's the mouth, it's auditory, it's linguistic, it's the language. But with everything else, nonverbal communication, it's exactly like what I just did. It's no words whatsoever. It's all in the body language. I took the hammer and threw it to my left. Anybody watching me do that would automatically see the language and the message from what I did. So, nonverbal communication has more animation. It's facial expressions. I don't believe what you're telling me. You don't have to say it. You can just, or it's body language. You're standing up giving a presentation and everybody in the room sitting there like this. So you've got the facial expression, you've got the closed off body language. There are other things that make it non-verbal. Touch, feelings. Did you know that you don't have to articulate your feelings for somebody to see that you're in a bad mood? If you're the kind of leader, as a woman, who's always cheerful, perky, ooh, you know, and you've always got something useful to say, people will come to know you who are working with you and around you as cheerful and perky. So the day that you come into the office and you're none of those things, and when you speak, normally, good morning, how are you today? But this particular day, good morning. Get straight to getting those papers on my desk. You see the difference? Now, women, hormonally, we do have those tendencies to change, to waver, to be imbalanced because of our hormones. And heaven help you if you're going through menopause. Oh la la. The storms will be in the midst, because when we're going through hormones and menopause, nothing is going to have balance. It's just not going to happen. Now, how can I say that? Well, maybe, just maybe, I've experienced a little bit of menopause. I know what I'm talking about. Even think about when it's that time of the month, ladies. What happens? There's the cramping, the headaches, the irregularity, the mood swings, back and forth. It's crazy, but yet it's life. And when we're in the workplace, if those natural biological things are going on, we have still got to be, unlike the male gender, we have still got to be harmonious. We have still got to be and expected to be professional. We have to come in as though everything is perfect, as though everything is good and there's nothing wrong. So tip number one are the verbal communications and the nonverbal communications. When I ask the question, how do women communicate? What I'm conveying in this particular tip is that we have various ways we communicate. Sometimes it's very verbal, other times it's very nonverbal. Let's move on to tip number 2, subtle movements or subtle stuff. Women sometimes, depending on how you learn and therefore communicate, can be very subtle in their communicating. There's some women that you work with who are even the leaders of the company or the department or the community who do not speak literally, they speak inferentially. When people speak inferentially, they're not honing in straight into what they want to say to you. What they're doing is talking roundabout. Why? Because they fear being rejected. They fear not having what they're communicating rendering effective and being embraced. So they will speak inferentially. Like, for example, ladies, it would be good if I could get you to just possibly maybe think about, you see all of the shifting that was going on there? It would be lovely if I could get you to think about maybe getting those papers done. And then when you get it to me, I can pass it on, if you can. That is an inference. That's saying what you literally want those women to do with those papers, but also pulling away from it by articulating, well, you know, just in case you can't do it, but try to do it. It makes no sense, but that's how some women and even men communicate. But when a leader, as a woman, is a literal communicator, you can count on that woman being straight on. She is going to tell you, I'd like those papers, ladies, on my desk by 3 p.m. tomorrow. Voila. Any wavering there? A strong wind could have come and never knocked over any one of those words. So, tip number 2, when I say subtle stuff, I'm talking about sometimes when we're talking about things that are not work related, we become very subtle in the way we express ourselves. And that is highly dangerous when you're dealing with women who work for you and with you. Women that work for you and with you are different from the women that you engage with as friends, maybe college colleagues or sorority sisters. You're going to have a different way of communicating with them, and that's coming up later in the course, than you would those who work for you, whom you supervise over. So that subtlety that we use as women in leadership can be very dangerous in that we are not communicating very effectively what we need those women or that woman to understand. When do we use subtleties? Many times we use subtleties because we don't want to hurt someone's feelings, or we already know that there's a weakness on that woman's part or that person's part as it relates to their work performance, their job duties. So we tend to be subtle. I'm saying that subtleties and the subtle stuff has its place. And then finally, tip number 3, the language of exclusion. Oh la la. As women leaders, we sometimes exclude people without to know it and others knowing it full well. We tend to exclude people simply because of accents, because of maybe a different ethnicity. Sometimes we exclude people that work with us and for us because they were not born in the country. So there's an automatic given disclosure or dismissal towards them because you render in your own mind and become convinced in your mind that they're not the same as you. And yet, that person, in most cases, is more multilingual than you are. I'd like to close this part of the course by helping you to understand whether people working for you are monolingual or multilingual. Both can add such great social cohesion and productivity to the work environment, rendering highly effectiveness. Now prepare for the next part of the course and the video, and let's keep this train moving, girl. All the best.